is 2020. Orbiting high above the Earth is a telescope, far more powerful than any before. It has just made a discovery that will change our lives forever. It has found an inhabited planet outside our solar system. More than 50 light-years from Earth, the telescope has located a world that glows like an oasis in the vast emptiness of space. It's cloaked in oceans and continents. This is a truly alien world. The air is so thick, humans could not survive here. And it's home to giants. Terrifying predators dominate the skies. Fantasy? Think again. Scientists believe we could find a world like this within 10 years. And they're preparing now for what we may find. Some of the world's leading scientists have come to this specially designed lab to continue their investigation into what extraterrestrial life might be like and where in the universe we are most likely to find it. All are world leaders in the fields of astronomy, astrophysics, biology, and biomechanics. And all share one vision, that we are not alone.
Many things about this environment are going to be strange by our standards.
This is the century for the discovery of extraterrestrial life. We have new programs looking for remote planets, we have new search strategies, we have new experiments being carried out on Earth. It's an incredibly exciting time to be here.
In preparation for what we might find, the scientists gathered here have begun to investigate which worlds are most likely to sustain life. They've designed life forms that could survive on an alien planet. But where are we most likely to find life? This is our galaxy, the Milky Way, home to 100 billion stars and at least as many planets. Earth is in this cluster of stars over here, and it's in a nearby region of the galaxy called Cygnus that our experts believe we're most likely to find life first.
The idea that there might be life out there has been around for a long time. And what has changed is the realization that we have the technology now to answer the question.
Over the next 10 years, a new generation of telescopes will be launched into space. More powerful than any before, they'll peer into the Cygnus constellation. It's one of the densest areas of stars in our galaxy. If life is out there, our greatest chance of finding it will be here, simply because the number of stars is so great. To narrow down the search, the scientists have decided to investigate a very common configuration in our galaxy: twin stars. More than half of all stars are in fact twins. Previously, astronomers thought twins were too unstable to let planets orbit around them.
But it turns out that if the planet is far enough away from those two stars, or if it's orbiting one or the other of them, then indeed the orbits can be stable, and you can have worlds that stay in their orbits for billions of years, and that could very well have life.
This recent discovery has opened up a vast opportunity for life in the universe. And the scientists will be looking for twin star solar systems like this. More than 50 light years from Earth, a star orbits with its twin. And orbiting around the two suns is a gas giant. A 1,000 times bigger than Earth, it's a violent, lifeless planet. But there's another world here. Orbiting around the gas giant is a moon. It's exactly the kind of world the astronomers hope to find.
You could have a moon the size of Earth, big enough that it could have an atmosphere, that it could have an ocean, and one that could be supportive of life of all sorts, including very sophisticated life.
Could this be a place where life might exist? And if so, what would it look like? The astronomers and astrophysicists gathered here have begun a groundbreaking project. They're investigating every detail of what a habitable moon could be like. A new world is coming to life. For life to survive, the moon will need a viable atmosphere and, most critically, water, the essential medium for all life.
If the moon is large enough, if it's geologically active, so it can recycle gases like carbon dioxide into its atmosphere through volcanoes, for instance, then it's quite possible that a moon like this could have a viable atmosphere.
All the parameters the scientists explored showed the moon could sustain life.
Potential of saying, well, this variation might tell us that there's a blue moon there, and in fact we might be dealing with potentially a habitable planet.
The scientists named it the Blue Moon. They decided to model it with a dense atmosphere, a scenario they believe could be very common in the universe.
As far as the blue moon goes, it has 3 times the atmospheric density as the Earth has.
This pressurized air will make levels of oxygen and carbon dioxide much higher.
The oxygen level is about 30%.
Oxygen feeds fires like nothing else. At these levels, it will push Blue Moon's atmosphere to the brink of spontaneous combustion. Fires here will be frequent. The Blue Moon will be a world on the edge.
One person goes out without a spacesuit. They're back within a minute. Their description is terrifying. It's an immense pressure. They can hardly breathe. It's hot, it's clammy, and they feel as if they're being pushed down by the most extraordinary weight. It's nothing like the Earth at all.
You're about to visit a world scientists believe could exist in our galaxy. The Blue Moon.
It's got blue seas, it's got clouds in the atmosphere. And the continents are cloaked with something, maybe some strangely coloured vegetation. I'd love to see a world like that.
Sunrise on the Blue Moon. Giant forests more than a kilometer high dominate the landscape. But this is a volatile world. Fires ignited by lightning and fueled by the high oxygen levels will be an extreme risk. Its dense atmosphere is like a gas ocean, and it will support some of the strangest aliens. Aliens that float, glide, and fly.
The sorts of life forms on Blue Moon I think would be totally fascinating. When we look in the atmosphere, there's a sort of almost greenish haze. It's almost like a plankton. But beyond that, there are these immense shapes. Are they gliding? Are they flying? All we can tell is they must be very large animals indeed. It's far, far beyond anything we're familiar with. This is a genuinely alien world.
The pagoda forest is the setting for an extraordinary story of how extraterrestrial life could survive in an extreme world. Fields of strange floating plants fill breaks in the pagoda's dense canopy. It's the territory of deadly predators the size of eagles, the stalkers. And they hunt giants. Blue Moon's life forms have been created by some of the world's leading biologists and biomechanists.
There's a sort of predictability to life on Earth which surely we can extrapolate across the galaxy. And even at this stage we can predict the sorts of organisms will be adapted for living in this thick, viscous atmosphere.
Everything about these aliens has been scientifically calculated. From the dimension of their wings, how they might see, to how they could interact with each other on this strange world.
Because if you find those, then at least you know there's life there.
There are wonderful opportunities for flight here. If you've got denser air, heavier air, it's going to be easier for big things to fly on the Blue Moon. Amazingly big things.
Soaring high above the pagoda forest are sky whales. With a wingspan of more than 10 meters, they're the Blue Moon's largest flying creatures. They're feeding on clouds of floating plants buoyed up by the dense atmosphere.
The likelihood of sky whales seems very high. They ought to exist. So on the Blue Moon, we have animals which originally were swimming in the oceans. But because the atmosphere in Blue Moon is so thick, one can imagine something swimming in the ocean to flying in the atmosphere effectively as a single transition. It's opening new eyes to the way in which evolution can happen on alien planets.
Guided by their sonar, these gentle giants glide on the thermal updrafts.
What a magnificent beast this is. A sky whale weighs as much as a rhinoceros. That's 10 times larger than the largest thing that has ever flown on Earth, a pterosaur.
At the time of the dinosaurs, we had in the sky gigantic flying reptiles. Why was that? Well, one of the best explanations is that the levels of atmospheric oxygen were substantially higher than they are today. There was basically more energy available. These things could get to gigantic size. And so when we go to other planets with similarly high levels of oxygen and also a much thicker atmosphere, not only will those animals be bigger than we're familiar with, but much bigger.
Oxygen levels are so high that creatures here will have 50% more muscle power than on Earth. This enables giants like the sky whales to spend their entire lives on the wing. It will also supercharge their main predator, the stalkers, giving them phenomenal flying power as they hunt a pod of whales. Soaring above the forest, the sky whales are safe as long as they stay high. The winds are faster here, making escape easier. The scouts come from a colony of more than 300 stalkers, and they're hungry. The scouts drop down beneath the pagoda canopy to avoid detection. They're waiting for one of the sky whales to drop its guard so they can single it out for attack. The stalkers have 3 eyes, giving them 360-degree vision, perfect for tracking the sky whales while maneuvering through this complex world.
The Cape stalkers are faster, stronger, and more agile than anything on Earth.
Scientists here have modeled their way of life on the social insects.
One of the most successful social systems on Earth is one we find in bees and wasps, for example. You have a queen, but you also have workers and other members responsible for different tasks. Now, on Blue Moon, we could imagine something rather similar, but interestingly much larger, because remember, the atmosphere is denser and there's more oxygen. Animals like stalkers would be, in a sense, like giant hornets. They would be divided into a series of scouts looking for new opportunities. But they're also workers and the queen staying in the nest.
The workers are faster and stronger than the scouts. They're the stalker army, and they're waiting for the scouts' signal to attack.
It's a very, very successful way to run a large colony and also to be very effective in cooperation, and that includes, of course, hunting. On the Earth, that same social organisation is found not only in the insects, but extraordinarily even in the mammals. Now, if this has happened independently on Earth, actually a number of times, then there's every reason to think it should occur elsewhere.
The scouts are still doggedly tracking the whales. But they've adopted a risky strategy. The pagoda understory is draped with a lethal veil of tentacles. It's the lair of ambush predators. The scouts must avoid touching anything down here. There will always be the hunter and the hunted. This battle for survival is a major force that has shaped the destiny of life on Earth. On the Blue Moon, scientists believe it will be no different.
I think there's only one thing that we can say is going to be true of life everywhere. And that one thing is Darwinian evolution. That is the insight that we have from Earth that I think is completely generalizable. Life everywhere will reproduce, mutate, followed by natural selection. That process, I think, is as universal as the laws of gravity and relativity.
Life here is 6 billion years old. It's complex and well established. But how could life ever get started on an alien world like the Blue Moon? The answer comes from one of the biggest space discoveries in recent years. It happens when stars die. The supernova explosion is so bright it outshines entire galaxies. In its wake, it leaves behind a nebula, a vast cloud of dust and gas tens of light years across. Inside, carbon and all the other elements for life are created.
What's interesting about this dust is that it's rich in organic material. That's the stuff of life out there in space. the biological material in our bodies and in plants and animals are proteins, and those proteins are made out of blocks called amino acids. Well, we see those same